and then super excited to see people that I actually like know and deeply care about in here too. So love that. I'm about to put my Instagram in the chat.
Yes, please do. Thank you. And then I am going to record.
Recording in progress.
Yeah, now we're going to get started. All right, so thank you to all of you for coming. I appreciate you so much for taking time out of your day to spend it with me for the next hour, at most 2 hours. I scheduled for 2 hours, so at most 2, maybe 1 hour, 15, 30 minutes, just in case you got to go anywhere. Hopefully not, but today is a very, very profound day. Today is a day where we will be walking together to collapse the time between our awareness, or some might call it anointing, some might call it, what I might say, recognition. We're going to collapse that time between that into full sovereign responsibility of our multi-venture visions. Today is the day, and I would like for you to mark it on the calendar. I grew up Christian, so I mean, I'm sure you've seen a lot of my posts use a lot of religious language, but one thing that I learned as I was a little Christian back in the day, not too long ago, but the biggest thing was when the Israelites crossed over the second time. I don't remember what the river is called, but when they crossed over the second time, they were sent back to make a memorial of what had happened. And that's significant because that day was a day that changed the trajectory of everything that they are as a people. And today, everything about you as a person, as the matriarch, a patriarch, as a governor, as a leader, as a visionary, will be shifted today. My ultimate goal for you today is to get you to cross that internal threshold, to give full consent to the responsibility of your vision. And I'm sure you've seen my content talking about it, but it's not a mindset shift. It's not something you just say with your mouth. It's something that you embody with your essence, with your being. It's something that you consent to become. I've already talked to a few of you guys about what you have in your visions and just the magnitude of it all. And up until this point, I understand, if you're here, I understand that it's largely has been, what's the good word? It's largely not, what's the good word I can use? It's not inevitable. That's the word I'm looking for. What we'll be going over today is how to make things inevitable, how to make it real. And that is the beginning, the foundation of the process of materialization. Whether you've already started and you've been in business for a few years, or if you literally just got the recognition of what you've been called to build just a few months ago, it doesn't matter. The consent is the same, and that is what we'll be working towards together today. Anyways, I know you all know me because you have to find me to be here, but again, I'm Naomi Olutayo. I am the brand priestess, and I work with governors. My call has been to wake all of you up, to wake the governors up. This is something that has been given to me for years now, but I haven't been able to fully coin it until just recently. So even for me, giving this consent is something that I had to walk through again and again because there were layers, but we'll get into my story in a little bit. The first thing I lied. What I want to say next is I am open to receiving anything, well, not anything, but I'm open to dialogue, but I do ask that we save that to the end, just so that everything that needs to be transmitted can be transmitted, and everything that is reflected back can be reflected in full awareness. So you have everything. Anyways, I would like to get started with the big question. The big question that is consent. Consent asks, are you ready to remain present throughout the entire duration of your vision rearranging you? Are you ready to remain present throughout the entire duration of your vision rearranging you? And by the end of this call, you can only give me 3 answers. I mean, you don't have to say it to me, but you can only have 3 answers. Yes, no, or no, but I'm willing to be ready. When it comes to being a visionary, it's so unregulated. It's not real. Like, it only becomes real when you finally execute it and it's successful. No one validates you outside of that. Like, I think what I have is incredible. I've never heard anyone share what I have to share, but it wasn't real until I made it real. And so it's the same for you. Like, what you have is what you have been carrying for so long, what you've been building, what you've been stewarding, what you've been curating has never been done before, not to this capacity, not to just this jurisdiction. And so when you have something that doesn't exist, that isn't real, that isn't recognized collectively, you become the only witness. Maybe your spouse, maybe your mom, maybe a friend, or maybe if you've talked to me, maybe I have been able to validate it and say like, yeah, that makes sense. That is something that is valid. That's something that needs to be made. But again, 2-3 people doesn't make it real. And so it's very easy to fall into this space where you talk about what you're doing, or you settle for a level of existence that is beneath the impact that you're here to make. Regularly in capitalism, you have an idea, you validate it, you fund it, then you execute it. There's a very short time between what you receive and what you put out. And the only reason why that works in that sequence is because there is containment for it. There is containment for that kind of execution. That's why the step of validation is there. For governors, more often than not, actually for all governors, there is no point of validation because the containment doesn't exist. That's what it means to own a realm. So what you're carrying here requires for you to have the inner stability, the consent, and the awareness of consequence and responsibility to carry it out, because it's your job to build that realm of containment for it to exist. And we're not going to talk about this today, but that is called the law of call and response. When you're putting out a call for this vision, there's nothing responding because there's no realm or containment. So if you feel like you might be incredible in what you're building and you're just not getting that kind of recognition, that's why. So when I say, are you ready for your vision to rearrange you? I am asking not just for you to change. Like, I'm not someone who is just going to tell you like, oh, you just have to have a better mind. You just have to have, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that when you are going through the process of materialization, when you're taking something that does not exist, that not only doesn't exist, but lacks containment for what is going to exist, that requires for you to create. And that is what is going to rearrange you. And so, like I said, there are only 3 answers. There's only one answer I want you to give, which is yes. Because your yes is how you give your consent. Your yes is how you take ownership of this vision. Especially if you grew up religious, Christian specifically. We have been taught, or a lot of us have been taught, to give everything to God, to cast everything on Him, to lay it at His feet. And you may not be in that headspace now, but it's so ingrained in our culture, especially if you're a woman, to just kind of outsource yourself. Or even if, just in general, we've just been taught to just outsource ourselves. And so even in capitalism, you don't need to bring yourself to the table. You need to bring results, and you need to bring money. You have to be someone who has a good return on investment in general. But when it comes to governing, when it comes to creating, it requires for you to bring your whole self, because your whole self is what creates, is what legislates the realm and what births the actual containment and the actual materialization of the vision. So, where we are starting right now is recognition, which is awareness without ownership. And where we'll be going is sovereign responsibility, which is awareness with authorship. I want to get us to the place where we're not just saying, I see my vision, but I agree to be responsible for what I see, including the cost to my nervous system, identity, and life structure. So, the first thing I really want to touch on is irreversibility. At the end of this call, and you give your consent, you will not be able to go back to the point where you said, I did not know. For me, I got my vision when I was 14 years old. And the first leg of my multi-venture vision was a hair care brand. And I had no idea about any of this back then. I was still growing and maturing in everything that I'm teaching now. And I thought that when I was given a vision like that by God, I'm like, okay, God, if you give it to me, it means it's going to happen. And so I just kept waiting, and then I would try to execute, and it just kept getting suppressed. The main thing for me was my parents. My parents were my biggest bullies. And so I got to the point in my business after doing several events and, having I wouldn't say it was successful for a 14-year-old. It was pretty good. I'm not going to lie. But I wasn't allowed to execute it anymore. So, what was I going to do? Do I want to get put out over some hair products? No. Maybe that's similar for you. I know for a lot of us, we've just faced like a lot of resistance with this, whether it was in our jobs, whether it was through entering into spaces that we thought were congruent to what we were building. But whatever it is, it could be trauma, right? It could be traumatic putting your whole heart and soul into something just to be resisted over and over and over and over again. And I'm telling you, I have, for the visions, the initial visions I was given, I tried for years. But I didn't understand the point of irreversibility because I didn't know how to engage with the laws of governance, which is essentially universal law. When you make something irreversible, it means that you are conscious in your consent. It means that regardless of your orientation, you can't unknow it. And the thing with not being able to unknow something, it has a very good way of making you fully accountable for everything that you're doing. Like I was saying, it's so easy to be like, I just didn't know better, or I've been locked out of funding, or it's just not working, or it's taking longer than I thought, because you haven't gotten to the actual state of irreversibility. Right now, we are at a place where things don't have to work because you may be in the dark about some things. But by the end, there is no excuse. That's what accountability is. When you give your consent, you know you've given your consent. And when you've received all the terms of consent, when you know that giving those old excuses or avoiding or ignoring or collapsing underneath the weight of it is a choice. And I want to use that very, very gently because there are, for a lot of us, trauma is very intertwined with this vision. So I don't want to dismiss it. However, for something to be irreversible, you have to be fully conscious. And I want to make you fully conscious today. You have a responsibility and a weight to your function. I think most of you here, or at least have watched my governance series. And I've gotten so much feedback where people have told me how it's just explained their entire life, which is good. But I need you to understand something. And this is one of my favorite things because I didn't know this back then, but I know today. Well, I've known for a while, but you get what I'm trying to say. But when you say I am, and a lot of you have been saying, I am a governor, you are engaging that law I mentioned, the law of call and response. The only reason why you can get a response is because we are governed in reality by God, source, the universe. So the response is your consent. When you join this session, you are engaging the law of call and response. You are putting out an identity, not even an identity, a jurisdiction. And through entering here, you are confirming that jurisdiction or looking to confirm that jurisdiction through your consent. When you say, I am a governor, I am sovereign, I am a king, I am a queen, I am an empress, you have just engaged the law of call and response. And so a lot of you have already been aware of who you are. The response you're getting back is almost like reality temp checking you. They want to see if you are who you say you are. The same thing goes with your vision. You are saying that I am a governor with a multi-venture vision that is meant to have this impact. Up until a certain point, likely for a lot of you today, those were just words. But today and onwards, when you say I am a governor, when you say that I have this vision, you're not just using frivolous words. Your consent is what binds this vision to earth. Because again, it doesn't exist right now. It might exist in some form. You might have a company, you might have it registered, you might have a name, you might have been in business for some time. But until today, nothing has bound you to your impact, to those consequences. You're a governor. You have a function. You have a responsibility, right? You may not have known who you were up until a certain point. But now that you know, you have to know that the biggest thing, the tool of choice for governors is their words, because they legislate. So when, again, this is just priming you for that moment of consent. When you speak something, when you say something, you're supposed to be bound by your words. Things are supposed to change. That's why when you come into contact with my content, you start changing. I know a lot of people who have reached out to work with me. They will come to me excited. And then, again, because I'm not a service provider. I like to say I'm a spiritual practitioner who offers strategy, right? They come to me excited. And then the moment where it's meant to give their consent, they disappear. And that's nothing wrong. It's just the fact that I have become a threshold that they never were forced to cross. This is that threshold. This is that threshold. As a governor, as a legislator, as an artist of law, your words, what you speak, what you embody, is what will create this realm that you have in your vision. Execution is a byproduct of creation. And that begins in your embodiment and it begins in your words. It's time to become accountable to your ontology. It's time to become accountable to your outcomes. There is no room, there is no system, there is no culture that you're locked out of. If you have felt like you haven't been able to break through in something, I need you to understand. As a governor, you are accountable to your outcomes. You are accountable to your ontology. In every present moment, there is not a moment where you are not rearranging reality. That's why your beauty, your appearance, your energy, your words, your voice, how you sing, how you dance, how you move, triggers people so quickly. So again, I just want you to understand this about yourself. You are a consequential being. And we need to match your words to who you've always been as governor. Because now at the end, when you say, I am a governor, that holds weight and that shifts things. There should be no room that you enter that does not rearrange itself according to your embodiment. When you're looking at a system or you're looking at an industry and you just don't know, and you want to and you recognize that you don't just have a product, you don't just have a solution, you have a new orientation for how they show up. That begins with your presence. That begins through your embodiment. This is revivalism. Your presence is meant to change things. The thing is, you've been doing this all along, but you haven't recognized it. Hence the jealousy, the anger, the being the black sheep, the rejection, etc. You're already doing this. But right now, it's becoming conscious of how you do it and becoming strategic with how you use it. And that is governance. You're not going to execute your way into this impact or this idea of impact that you have. You're not going to you're not going to execute your way to changing culture. You're going to be your way into change. And that's how you use your ontology to shift everything. That is your responsibility. Most people actually don't need sovereign responsibility in this way because they're not creating. They're just inhabiting. I call them reinforcers, but you are not a reinforcer. So, there are consequences to your decisiveness. When we get to the end and you give your full consent to this vision, the consequences. In life, we've been largely removed from consequences. That's why we have narcissism. We have so much abuse. That's why racism is a thing. We've all been sheltered from consequences unless we are bearing the burden of the consequences. I mean, most of us here feel the consequences of what racism has done to us. I feel the consequences every single day of my parents' mistreatment towards me. I don't know if you know my story, but I grew up abused. And so I'm very familiar with consequences. Every day I face them. It's in my blood. It's in my health. It's in how I see. It's how my sight isn't as good as it should be. And so I need glasses. It's in how I walk. I don't even know how to explain that. But it's in how I walked and how I had to heal in so many ways. I want you to feel those consequences. Not to re-trigger you, but I need you to have a stronger relationship with consequence. We've all gone through something. That's just my story. I feel it every day. But I was removed from the consequences of my choosing because I've just been a victim for so long. I didn't know how to be consequential and not just be a product of a consequence. That's the flip. When you say that you are sovereign, which is part of the consent, it says, I am willing to be bound by the consequences of my authority. You already are consequential. There are so many of you that I've already met, and just engaging with your content has changed my orientation. That's an art. But you're not aware of those things, or you may not even be in control of the outcome because you're not creating the conditions for certain outcomes. Your vision requires for you to be aware, first by your consent, so that you can be sovereign and be willing to be bound to the consequences of your authority. I am bound to the consequences of my authority, which is why I had to switch things up every so often, because I realized okay, I understand. I see ahead in my words. There are places I won't go. Oh, for example, my vision touches on a lot of mountains of influence, which is normal for governors. Typically, governors have their vision touch on multiple mountains of influence. For me, I know specifically I will be touching religion a lot. Right now, I don't step foot in a church if I have not been guided to first. Not because I'm scared. I mean, sometimes I'm not scared. It's just you know how church is. I'm not scared, but I know the consequence of myself. Outside of everything that has gone on in my life, that was part of the story. We can get into that another day. But I have gotten to a point where I recognize my presence somewhere changes it. I cannot go into certain places because that is part of my ontology. That is governance. hence being a black sheep. Doesn't matter if you're aware of it or not. This call is just to make you aware so you can give consent cleanly. Because going through initiation blind hurts. It really fucking hurts. And I've been through it. And I'm sure you've been on that journey blind and without many people who can mirror you, right? And it hurts. I know it hurts. So I want to make you aware. You're already governing to a degree, or you're exercising governance to a degree. But to give your full consent says, I am willing to be bound by the consequences of my authority. That means in how you speak. It means in your presence. It means in what you allow and what you give your agreement to. Those things matter. Another consequence is shown in accountability, which says, I am solely responsible for the impact of the outcomes I author. At this point, you are a co-creator with God, with Source. There is no one else responsible for bringing these outcomes that you see in your vision but you. And they will not come outside of your consent. You cannot execute your way into governance. You initiate, which begins with your consent. This is what this is. You need to be fully conscious of your authority. Because I am that I am, I govern. Because you are, you can operate in this jurisdiction. And then there's alignment. I refuse to collapse my vision, and there can be nothing less than the total materialization of the vision I was given. And alignment for me was a multi-year lesson, because I don't know, when you're struggling, it's just, why would you choose otherwise? And also, I guess when you're going through so much alone, it's just like you're trying to self-preserve. There is no self-preservation in governance, because again, you're responsible for your outcomes. And this can also be a reason why you have resisted consent with your vision, because when you are aware and become responsible and accountable to those outcomes, that means every decision you make, you're accountable for. And now you're conscious. You always have been, but you have to be conscious. You know what I mean? Your alignment as you're building. It doesn't matter how much money you're offered. It doesn't matter. There can be nothing less than what you were given. And that requires for you to govern, because currently you lack containment in the material for your vision to materialize. You see what I mean? You're not a reinforcer, you're a creator. And then lastly, your identity. It means I am defined. You have to be willing to know yourself, to be fully known, fully defined, and fully accountable. And that directly impacts how you execute. You can only create from what you are. A lot of us has taken on identities that just aren't true. Like for me, I called myself a brand strategist for the longest time. I was never no damn brand strategist. I just didn't know for a long time. Like everything I've even said just made no sense. And I try to fit everything into like all my knowledge and studies of business and everything. It just was never going to work. Even like how I run things now, this does not, like I have not met anyone else who does it like this. Like I had to create this structure for me. I was never a brand strategist. And since 2021, I've been going around saying like, yeah, I'm a brand strategist. And it just never stuck. And so a lot of times we take on titles that just don't work. And we try to, and then again, naming is important. You follow the name that you're given. So if you are Black, you want to act Black. If you are Russian, you want to act Russian, because that is your name. Unless you reject the name or you're ashamed of the name, then that's the muddiness. A lot of us are in that muddiness. We don't know the name that we are because we haven't come across it yet, or we just haven't been given it yet. And so that's that muddiness. Governance requires clarity and cohesion. A lot of you are going to have a name change after this. Whether it's a title that you identify with, whether it's an industry that you really associate with, there's going to be a name change, because you have to operate under your true name, your true jurisdiction for you to function. Otherwise, you will always be less than. And then again, just your identity. Who are you? Can you see yourself? When life brings you accountability. Do you shrink back? Do you blame? Do you avoid? Do you run? Do you make excuses? Because otherwise, you will never consent to this. At the end of this, you won't consent if you're not aware of it and then choose differently than your norm. You have to be able to know yourself. I call it the art of self-intimacy. Can you see into you? Can I see into me? If you can't, then what are you creating? The vision doesn't live here in your imagination. It lives everywhere. It's in your toes just as much as it is in your brain. It is the essence, it's the externalized, materialized expression of what you are. It's like when you have a baby. You're not your baby, but you are your baby until they're born. So you have to know. You have to know who you are. And you can't run from who you are. Because again, engaging with that law of call and response. There will come a time, like today for a lot of you is today, but there will be another time when you are saying, I consent to be arranged and to stay present, or I am a governor, and life is going to check you. Because you can't just invoke the name of God like that, I am, with a jurisdictional title, and then expect to just, for nothing to happen. You already are authoritative. Like if you knew who you were, you wouldn't be throwing around words crazy, because that's how you create. That is your instrument. So you have to be able to know yourself and tolerate knowing yourself. Otherwise, the reflection will be inaccurate and you will never be aligned and you will never get to the place of irreversibility and consequentiality in your vision. Now I want to talk about when you can't, like if you can't consent, because a lot of us may not have been able to consent. I couldn't consent for a long time because, it was a lot that I realized. It was pressing up against a lot of my fears, right? And so when you can't consent, or if you aren't aware that you're not consenting, or if you choose not to consent, there is no execution. There is no aligned execution. If you can't consent to the demands of your vision, what is inevitable for you is collapse, oscillation, fragmentation, mistrust, and depletion. You injure yourself. There is no healthy execution outside of your consent. Again, you are not optimizing life. You are creating, you are working with reality to create something that's coming through you. It's almost like childbirth can rip you open. You can get really injured in childbirth. So what makes you think you will leave unscathed in reality birthing? Your consent is what makes the birthing process not just tolerable, but jurisdictionally allowed. Because again, I keep talking about like knowing yourself, right? There's going to come a point when you're executing, when you have to ask yourself, what is this? For example, I work with somebody and they are someone who I believe is meant to restructure the realm of masculinity. And so we got to the point where I'm like, okay, so what is masculinity to you? And they just couldn't answer. They just gave me really short answers. Because that question isn't a neutral question for him. It was something that revealed him and all of who he is, how he thinks. That to be able to restructure an industry requires for you to restructure yourself. Like for me, I could not teach this, I could not transmit this if I could not resolve my resistance to sovereignty. If I could not resolve my resistance to power, because governance is power. So again, what you are doing is a reflection of you. It comes from you. It is you until you externalize it. So if you lack capacity to deal with hard emotions, if you run away at the first inkling of correction, of being exposed, if that's how it feels for you, then you will run from the demands of your vision. The demands of your vision at this stage, what you're consenting to, is that internal rearrangement. Because we think automatically, like, I just have to execute. You're not executing right now. The execution is creation, and creation deals with your interiority. If you see someone who you think looks better than you, do you get jealous? Then I promise you, you will not materialize this vision. If you shut down when someone says something to you that you don't like, you will not materialize this vision. This vision will touch on every single wound of yours. It will. And that's why so many people get fractured on their way there, because they just don't know. Like, it's not just this. We see it with celebrities all the time. All the time. Except theirs is just public. When you are creating or realizing a vision and executing it, it will touch on those things because it needs those things to be coherent. But the thing with governors, alignment isn't optional. A lot of people can go through life and create beautiful things, but just be fractured inside, or just, just be evil, like Elon Musk. He didn't have to be anything coherent to do what he had to do. He just had to be coherent into certain areas. But for governors, that's not true. That is not true, because otherwise, everything you create will be bent. It's almost like how, when a baby comes out and then the head starts to look kind of long because, you know what I'm trying to say? It's kind of like that. Or like when the baby's arm gets stuck in the mom when it's being born, that can cause issues, complications. I'm not saying that that's like a form of misalignment. I'm just saying when you're working with reality, that's how it's going to come up. There is no alignment without coherence. Alignment begins in here. That means everything that expresses from you is true. Your consent to staying through the rearrangement process is how you allow yourself to not be really injured through the process. I know that sounds kind of intense, but I want to make that very clear, because the main thing is I would have liked to know when I started, but also when you okay, so you guys have such strong visions. Like, I know you know who you are. I know what you have is not just another business. You are literally redefining the way that we interact with each other and reality on a deep level. It's not just, I'm just going to be a thought leader, or I'm just going to be the most successful brand in this. You know that is just the vehicle you're using to get there. So that's a whole lot of power coming through you. Every day you show up and you do the work. That is so much power coming through you. That is so much. And that can be very not great if you don't know how to stay rooted in the process. And that's what I'm having you consent to. Staying present while you're being rearranged. That is what you're consenting to, not the vision. You know the vision. You know what you want to do. You know you have so much, you get revelations of it every single day. But what you're consenting to today is to stay. Think of it like when you're in a relationship. How do you act when you receive love? How do you act when someone shows interest in you? That will tell you a lot about how you receive, how you'll deal with staying in a relationship. For me, by the way, this is going on with attachment styles. I have a series coming out soon. I have to refilm it, but it'll be out, so you'll know then. It will go into more detail. But for me specifically, I had a disorganized attachment style, which meant that in my formative years, my caregivers harmed me, but I needed them for safety, and it created this dissonance. It was like a split. And so when it came to my vision, I related to it the same way. It was harming me, but that was my safety, because I was, at that time, things were just so bad. And I found so much solace in believing and working towards this thing. But I could never stay consistent. I shut down for weeks at a time. So after this, I highly recommend you looking up your attachment style and then watching my series once it comes out. But the point is, I lacked capacity to stay as I was being rearranged because I lacked, at least for the disorganized attachment, I just lacked continuity of identity. You create from your identity. You might not be like me. You might be avoidant, where, as let's say in a relationship, someone finally admits to you like, oh, I'm in love with you. What do? You just dip. That's exactly what you're going to do with your vision. Or if you're anxious, you won't be able to stay long enough to be the first, to lead and go first. You won't be able to stay long enough throughout the process if you need so much external validation to make yourself feel okay. You have to meet your vision with stability. You have to be who you are so your vision can be who it is and it can flow through you without destabilizing you. Today, whether or not you have the nervous system for it, whether or not you are still in active trauma, that's not the point. That's not my business. And the thing that I'm really trying to say is it doesn't matter, because the only thing that you need to do is consent to stay. You have to stay. And staying might look like resting, if that's what's demanding of you. Staying might look like having that hard conversation with a spouse, with a parent, whatever, so you can resolve something, a needed structure in your life going forward. It doesn't matter. Sometimes the first points of execution or creation isn't going to get that funding. It isn't going to post more. It isn't hiring. It's committing to your coherence. That's all I'm having you consent to today, to stay. When you're being asked to do something completely contradictory to the market, can you stay in that dissonance and discomfort? For me, I couldn't for a long time because, again, I thought I was a brand strategist for so long. I didn't even get my name, the brand priestess, until May of last year. And I knew what I was doing was different. And so I was back and forth. Like I would make my offers look like, what a brand strategist should have it look like. But then in my sessions, it always ended up to what I'm supposed to do as a priestess, right? And it also looked the same thing with my hair care brand. Like my mission statement, like I had everything written out because, if you don't know, I'm a self-taught brand strategist. I started teaching myself marketing, branding, everything since I was 13. So back then, even then, like I was very robust in like what I was doing. And there is this dissonance. Like, this is a hair care brand. There is a formula that can get you to a certain point. But I didn't want to do that. I was rewriting the whole script. You can't rewrite the script of something you don't own. So I'm sitting here mad, like, why is no one getting what I'm trying to do? And then later on, a lot of the things I didn't invent, but what I formulated ended up being popular later. It's just I didn't have the jurisdiction to influence that. I would have to go through investors, like who's investing in a 14-year-old? I didn't even have the support of my parents. No one's going to do that. So I just was barred in so many areas. That wasn't my path to take. My path was always structural. That's why none of my ideas just made sense. It always contradicted the ways things are. I couldn't stay in that though, because I was like, well, how am I going to make money? Or that's not how am I supposed to do this? Or how am I supposed to charge this? How am I supposed to make these kind of customers if these are the conditions that I just couldn't, because I couldn't settle the dissonance in my mind. You have dissonance because you're not choosing. You have to recognize. You can't say I'm doing something that no one has done before. You can't say I'm leading and going first and then following the rules. Not as a governor. You are a governor. I'm not saying to be weird and be entitled. What I'm saying is that as you move through this understanding of governance, you have been given a certain level of jurisdiction to influence the way things are done. And right now, you might be just little old you right now. It doesn't matter. That's why the path is different. Can you stay present through that path as it reveals itself to you? That's what you're consenting to. Because otherwise, you're going to be running in circles. You're going to be losing trust in yourself. I've even had people invest in me and I've squandered it. Because you can't say that you're building something and then it's not that. has to be one or the other. Are you a governor, or are you just someone who's building a business? Because then you got to choose. It's not going to work. You're going to burn yourself out. And if you have people involved with you, they're going to lose trust in you. And as a governor, trust is important. It's important for all of us, but especially for governors. Because your access oftentimes depends on your alignment. And when you're aligned, they may not want to work with you no more. I've seen that happen so many times. So many times. Like, that's a whole nother story. But yeah, you have to choose. Today, you're making that choice. To build what you know that you're building and leave what you've known behind, or maintain what you've always known. For example, it might look like, let's say you think that you're a beautician and you know how that works. You know how that world works. You know the culture, you know the lingo, you know how that works. But the vision that you have for whatever it is, you thought it was just another beauty studio. And so you keep trying to shove it in this box, but you see my words and you recognize in your own self, like all these things that are part of it in your multi-venture vision, but you keep trying to shove it in this box. And for a long time, you didn't know that. You may not have even realized that because you didn't even have like the awareness to say like, oh, this is something else. Because what is that something else? That's for you to define. That is your legislation. But you just didn't know. The point is to not oscillate between the two anymore. You are only as authoritative as you are decided. Is that an apple or a pear? What is it? When you go to the world and say, I have an apple or a pear, can you invest in me? I have an apple or a pear. Can you come join my team? God has spoken to a lot of you about having teams. And these are really profound, powerful people in their respective ranks. And you're going to give them an apple and a pear, apple or a pear? What is that? No one's going to know. You need to know so that can be communicated. And that's what you're consenting to today. You might not know what it is, an apple or a pear. Is it a grape? I don't know. You are consenting to staying present long enough for what that is to take form. That is creation energetics. And until that happens, there really is not much execution. Your execution is the presence, and that presence might have you do execution style things, but you're not executing. You are binding your vision on earth. For me, I didn't fully allow myself to let this take form until this time last year. And it took a whole year for it to ground itself. And that's where governance came from. That's when God finally spoke to me. He was like, your job is to wake up the governors. That's completely different from brand strategy. Up until that point, I was sitting here saying I'm a brand strategist. And then when you look in hindsight, it's like, that's so stupid. Like, how could I have known? But like, now you know. What you're consenting to right now is grounding who you are and what you're here to do on earth long enough so that once that hits fully, it's a fully formed thing, you can just go. Before that, it's incoherent. It is destabilized. It's like pieces. It's like, is it an apple or a pear? And then not only that, it's like, think of it like a picture, and you have pieces all over the place. And they even make it like a actual thing, right? Let's say this is your vision. This is what you're consenting to. This whole coherent piece. This is foundation. This is ground zero. Right now, before you consent, what is this? Oh, I'm actually a brand strategist, but I also know that I'm supposed to build a school, but I also know that I'm supposed to have a hair care line, and I'm going to have a YouTube channel, and I'm going to model, and I'm also going to own real estate. And I was also shown this specific building in my vision. And I I also want to work with the homeless. What is it? So now you're executing on, I'm building a school. But then what about this? What happened to it? The point is coherence. The point is for it to all be one, ignore that, rip. To be one piece. This is creation. That is the ground zero of creation. This is the equivalent to God speaking and saying, let there be light. Because until there was light, nothing could exist. We all are made of light. We experience reality through light. That's how we have eyes. And we see. This is your light. And through everything else that can be created from there is coherent. That's why our earth makes sense outside of the humans' bullshit. But Mother Earth, she makes sense. She's coherent. This is what you're consenting to stay long enough to receive this. That is your consent. Anyways, I don't know if you have anything in your mind that might make you feel like you're taking a deep breath, or like you might feel maybe some constriction, or maybe there's something in your mind that you know that you might have to let go of or take on or become something. Maybe there's something in you that is making you kind of like, hold on, let me put the pause up there. If there is, and you would like to share with the class, please do. You don't have to, but if you would like to, please do. But I want to go through the most common threshold resistances, because we are standing in a threshold right now. We are standing in a threshold of ground zero, of staying long enough as a creator to ground this on earth. And also, I should say, this will often come as a name change. This will often come as a principle, as like an idea, a product, something. It doesn't have to be like me. Like for me, it started with my name changing, and then it ended finally with me having the full governance understanding. Like I finally put a name to it and say, this is governance. Not just all these pieces, but this is governance. So it'll often come as a name, as a single word, as a product that you are actually finished with. It can come in the form of a person. It might be a spouse. It might be a longtime partner or something. Like something on this earth will materialize. Something. It will not just stay in here. For me, it was my governance series. That was my declaration of it is finished. Again, we're creators. It starts, let there be, which a lot of you have already done that, where you've already have said that this can exist. But at the end, when we're here, that is, you have to get to the point where you recognize that thing that's fully formed and you say, it is finished. Because otherwise, the loop doesn't close. So I need you to remember that too. You have to close the loop and really actually say out loud, it is finished. And it is good. So, anyways, common threshold resistances. Let me see. Oops. 1 second, y'all. Okay. So, the first thing is avoidance. And I come across this a lot because I was very avoidant for a long time. But the first resistance is losing your ability to avoid. I mean, after this, you can't avoid because you know now. Revelation, knowledge, wisdom, received wisdom and revelation knowledge are portals. And they're also responsible. You are accountable to what you know. You wouldn't have come here if you didn't want to be accountable for it. This is why you're here. But avoidance. The biggest resistance is losing your ability to avoid and say like, oh, I didn't know, or I'm just busy, or I'll get to it later. You're actively making a choice if you avoid. So again, think of how you show up in romantic relationships. Think of that. And that will let you know, or at least give you like an unbiased view of how you kind of show up for your vision. For me, like I was saying, how I showed up in romantic relationships was very hot and cold. And so I looked at my vision, it was the same thing. I was very hot and cold. I can go all in for like 2 months, and then for 3 weeks, I'm just completely avoidant of it. I have nothing to do with it. For you, it might be different, but yeah. Another thing Another threshold resistance is being unwilling, just plain unwillingness, which I consider pride. I don't like to look at pride as like you think you're better than someone or nothing like that. I see pride as your resistance to seeing yourself and your resistance to changing. We are all made of water. We're always changing. Stagnated water is super dangerous. I don't know if you've gotten on that side of the internet where they talk about stagnated water. It's a whole hole that I fell down a while ago, but it's relevant here. Stagnated water is dangerous. It can kill you. Stagnated humans are dangerous, and they will kill your vision, your baby. Another resistance is grief, which is the fear of irreversibility. For me, I've had so much grief. I grieved so bad the fact that I just would never be normal. For me, like my escapism was living a life of normality, that I can just go to work and then clock out. And life just never ended up that way. I couldn't run from this. Maybe you have felt like you couldn't run from what you know you've been given, and that can cause grief, and that can be something you're resisting through your vision or consenting to it. Another thing is intolerance. Maybe your nervous system capacity is low. Maybe you recognize like what this is requiring of you, and you're just like, I don't have it in me right now. That's fine. I mean, I'm not going to judge you for that. That was me for a long time, but it's just, let's be aware of it, you know? The grief of not being able to be normal is so real. I'm so glad you relate, because I just wish more people talked about that specifically, because when you're a governor, life is never normal. I mean, for most of us, either you started as a black sheep, you started off with some kind of trauma that was significant, that made you fundamentally different to begin with. So I get it. This one, psychological anesthetic. A lot of us lack tolerance for reality, and I'm talking about myself for a long time. And that's why we have a lot of addictions, a lot of relationships we should have never been in, a lot of running. Like when you can't take reality for what it is, you just anesthetize, how you say it? You know what I'm trying to say. You can't take it. So you numb yourself to life. And being a governor requires for you to be hyper aware of reality, because otherwise, if you don't know the laws, you can't engage with them. You'll be a victim of the laws. It's almost like you might not have known that you are like that. I don't know, gravity works like kids. So they jump off of everything. They don't know gravity yet. So they are victims of gravity. A lot of them hurt themselves. Or it could be, let's say, especially for women, I know for women who grew up religious, I did not know the laws of life like that when I grew up. So then engaging with men, engaging with work, I became a victim to social laws. I didn't know any better because I was taught something different. I don't know if you can relate to that, but sometimes certain groups teach you laws that work in those groups, but not in the collectives group. So I became a victim to a lot of social and hierarchical laws. I didn't know any better. And so a lot of us numb ourselves out. Yeah, a lot of us numb ourselves out because it's just easier than being like recognizing what things are. Like, it's easier to just think that that's just how God made it, or that's not my business, because it's hard. It's hard to recognize those things. And you might have already faced that with dealing with a lot of your trauma. Sometimes it's just easier to just not deal with it. But if you have the habit of escaping from reality to handle life, you will not, this vision will, it will pull up everything. So again, I just want you to be aware. Capacity for reality and truth is required. And then there's guilt. For me, I resisted because I felt guilty. I know who I am. I say it all the time. If I die not famous, I haven't lived. If I die without ever owning a Porsche, I have not lived, because that's just my vision. If I have died without owning several properties, I have not lived. Because, I mean, for a lot of people, they may not say that. For me, though, I know I'm saying that. But then I feel guilt because I think of where I've come from. And I'm like, Well, why would I show up to Hempstead in a Porsche? That's so weird. That's in Long Island, by the way. If I die without a yacht, I haven't lived. Yeah. That's really how you have to take it. Like, you have to see it like that, because sometimes we look at our vision as optional, forgetting that it is you. You can't not choose yourself. I mean, you can, but it doesn't work. It never works. You can't not be who you are. It's written in the stars, in the books already. It's who you are. It's destined. But you can choose against it, and that causes a lot of trouble. But yeah, guilt. A lot of guilt for me, because I just didn't want to leave the people I came from behind. I knew that I couldn't continue to associate there anymore. And I became like, I connected so much with just struggle that I almost felt a solidarity with it. I don't know if you guys know, but there was a time when I was homeless. And so, although I grew up a certain kind of way, it was still, I don't know. The whole point is, like, I grew up one way, and then I went through that, and then I got to where I am now. And it's kind of jarring because you see all sides. I've seen middle class living. I've seen rich living. I've seen homelessness. I've seen on the come up. I've seen it all. And I guess I kind of connected to that kind of reality. And so I just felt guilty. Like, well, people knew me when I was going through all those things. They knew me when I was abused. They knew me when I was homeless. They knew me when I had nothing. So who am I to be who I am? Which, I have a video called The Art of Feminine Arrogance. I highly suggest that. Because there has to come a point where other people's perceptions of you can no longer be your ceiling. And that was a big one for me. Just the grief of knowing that I've outpaced a lot of people that I've cared about, and they won't be coming with me. Let me see. For me, the guilt and nervous system capacity go hand in hand. The guilt drains me, puts me in freeze. Yeah, I agree with that. The guilt drains me and puts me in freeze and puts me in a space of leaking my energy. Yeah, that was for me a lot. That guilt and the grief and the nervous system all intertwined for me a lot. So I agree with that. And then you said, I feel this for me. It's grief that drains me. Yeah. That's why, if you've noticed or not, a lot of my videos center grief, because I think grief is the governor's bread and butter. I really do believe that, because it's only, if you know the story of the giver, I don't know if you read that in school, but the premise of the story, I can talk a lot. My point is, the point of the book is that this kid ended up discovering that the life that he was living just wasn't true. It was curated, and he had to take on the collective's memory, and he had to keep it for himself. And that's kind of how it is when you're a governor, because you don't get the privilege of not knowing. You have to know to pursue your job. That's why you've been so advanced in so many ways for so long. And so grief comes up a lot. It touches on a lot. And I think being able to have a healthy relationship with it will give you that capacity, because otherwise it's just, yeah. Let me see the comments. I didn't choose myself for years and I lost everything. Yeah, that's why I went through what I went through. I didn't want to be arrogant. And so I kind of held myself back almost to be at the pace of a lot of others. And so I wouldn't rock the boat. Again, I talked about how when you're a governor, you naturally restructure the order of every space you're in. You may not see it, but if you're there long enough, things condense into form around you. And I didn't have the audacity to say, like, this is who I am. And so I lost a lot as well. And then I wonder how many governors can relate to that, being homeless or not on the verge of hopelessness at certain times. That seems to be a common thread. Yeah, it is a common thread, because, again, you lack containment for who you are. Before me, where did you hear about this? I didn't even hear about this. I had to literally download this from the divine, from God. God gave this to me. So it's like, it's a form of spiritual homelessness. You know what I mean? Because it's like this weird dichotomy where you are stronger and more resourced in capacity than those in your immediate surroundings. Yet, because you are still coming into your governance. You lack so much you haven't recognized your own jurisdiction to take ownership of certain spaces. And so you become victims to it. And so I know that's why homelessness is a common thread, because when you are present and you start changing things and showing things to people that they don't want to see, you get pushed out. That's why governors have a problem keeping jobs. That's why celebrity governors are hunted a lot. They are ostracized. They are controlled. Let me think of one. I think of Ariana Grande a lot. I'm not saying that she's a governor, but I mean, outside of her qualms, like, she has gone through a lot. That's very common. And even though she has mass acceptance to a degree, like, there's still that trauma that follows you. We all know about the bombing that happened in England at her show. We know about the losses she's gone through. Like, I use her as an example a lot because I recognize that she has become a victim of systems that she was never meant to submit to or reinforce. When you are a governor and you start reinforcing things, you will become a victim to what you're reinforcing all the time. Happen over and over again. Let's see. I have dealt with periods of homelessness too, literally at certain points, running away. I think it's important to bring that up, the solidarity with others struggling, and even more than that, the fear of showing a different self than the struggling version of yourself people are used to, and leaving them behind. Especially if you've always talked about your dreams when struggling and hadn't been believed in because of who they could see you as. Like getting stuck in other people's versions of you. Yeah. I have been nervous to cross into a different levels because people aren't used to seeing me that way. I have leveled up slowly nonetheless. Yeah. A big thing that I've noticed is that we hide. Like, we hide our level ups. You're always leveling up, but this is what this consent does as well. You have to, being seen, you can't not be seen and be a governor, because that's where your influence lies. A lot of times being seen might be in powerful rooms. You might not be a celebrity, but like, you will be seen by those people who make those changes, who might be able to reinforce the changes that you are influencing. Sometimes your influence is for powerful people. That could be like being a leader of leaders, a governor of governors, the coach of celebrities, the president of presidents, whatever it is. So yeah, for me, that was a big thing, because I think when you hide, you don't have to choose. When no one knows how big you are, you don't have to choose. So you don't have to choose your governance because it's not required of you. But when you choose it and you stand in it publicly and you say with your mouth, like I had one of my clients, I said, you have to announce to your audience who you are. You can't just keep saying to me that I'm a king. If you watch my governance series, you'll know what I'm talking about. But you can't just keep saying it to me because I don't need to know this. I already know it. They need to know who you are. The same way people come out and say, I'm a doctor, you have to say, I am. I am. And that is how you begin to engage with reality, because you can't speak at reality and expect it to change according to the jurisdiction that you haven't even claimed publicly. And publicly varies person to person, but you have to say who you are. That's how you engage with governor's laws. Let's see. Doechii feels like a governor to me. Yeah, I love Doechii. She has done, like, from what I can sense on her, she has done so little in comparison to what she will do by the end of her life. Like, she is definitely, if she's not a governor, then she operates in those laws, in that spectrum of some kind, for sure. Like, she, even as much as she's gotten where she is, like, there's so much more. And that's with, like, a lot of governors. Like, sometimes you may have already broken out in your success and you've been recognized, but it's always the tip of the iceberg. You won't always know their impact because we don't see it. Most people don't have to think that deep. Like, I made a post a while ago that said that governors see at a very specific altitude. And most people might be only able to, like, engage on the surface of the water, but then governors, they are at the ocean floor and they can go up and down. You know what I mean? That's what it is. So when you just look at what she's put out, you can't even see all of it. But I definitely agree that Doechii is probably a governor. And then maybe we level up so often we trivialize it and we don't think it's a big deal. Yeah, I think so. And I think because the main reason is because we don't allow ourselves to engage with the law of call and response, where we engage with, it could be energetic structures, spiritual structures, or material structures. And we don't know how to engage with it. so we can receive that feedback to validate us. I'm actually working on something. I haven't gotten the full revelation of it, but it's essential. I guess it's a principle. I'll give you the name. It's like, I have a few ideas, but it's going to be called like the witness circle, or the mirror's witness or something. It's a principle of like reciprocation. For a lot of governors, our impact, I was talking with a reach about this actually, that like, I think it was just yesterday or 2 days ago. And it's like, we so often like change things. Like, you don't realize your impact. You don't realize what you do. You don't know who's watching you. And people change in your presence all the time. Like people have gotten richer around me. They have gotten more embodied around me. They have gotten more powerful around me. People just watching me, like, it changes their orientation. Like, especially, I've dealt with a lot of jealousy. Like, literally, one thing, and I know you can relate, is when sometimes you could just be walking normally, and then everyone in the area just notices you and takes notice to you. Like, it may not be to that specific degree, but typically governors, just in their very existence, they orient to you. And so that is evidence. Or it could even be with animals. It could be animals, it could be children, it can be the weather, it can be like different things, but things just shift around you. When you go into a place, you can be completely unknown, but you always so happen to be the center of it. People notice you. You get challenged a lot. That's because you are still a governor. You still have those not gifts, but that jurisdiction. Like, and so because there is no required source of reciprocity, which is how you engage the law of call and response, you go so long without being mirrored, without being witnessed. And so what I've been working on, at least trying to receive more of, is like creating maybe like structures for governors to put into place so that reciprocation is mandatory, because otherwise it will drain you, because the work that you're doing is a lot. Even before you get anywhere, it's a lot. Anyways, can you go into the inability to root and contain within a home container more as it relates to governance and ability to see maybe anything about mirrors on metaphysical and dynamic level versus self-rejection? My father has spoken about similar threads to what I hear in you for years now, having a self aspect as a governor, even being referred to as law by his behavior as a nickname. I think it's interesting to see these threads showing up. I received a message the other day when out the blue saying, why are you walking around like no one can see you? And it struck me. Okay. Can you explain can you clarify what you're asking in the first question so I can get deeper into it? So I'm not sure what you are specifically asking. Well, yeah, I guess while you're writing, I'll just go over the other threshold resistances. But yeah, Angel, please let me know so I can answer you coherently. But yeah, we'll get back to that. Let's see. Shame is another threshold resistance. Shame avoidance. For me, shame, again, was a big... It ran my life for so long. I had shame about who I was, and so showing up in who I am just felt wrong. I felt shame about people who used to know me, and so I wanted to hide, and I didn't want to feel the shame that would come if they saw who I am now. I felt shame about my mistakes, a lot of things. And so when my vision was pressing on me, or like trying to move through me, it couldn't, because it triggered those aspects of me. And so that's another threshold resistance. And then the two last ones are lack of self-trust and low desire. Low desire is just, sometimes you just don't want it. Like for me, I just realized, like, I try to optimize everything. I try to make everything work. And then I realized I actually just don't want it. Why? Because I just didn't want to give what it was asking of me. And I had to work on that. For me, though, how I overcame that low desire was realizing that there is no choice. And that sounds horrible because, I don't know, there really is no choice. Like, I can't choose against myself. Like, we think the vision is like an idea floating in our brain. The vision lives in every piece of our DNA. There's nothing to choose. It's you. It's our ontology. I think for me, like in religion, they say you can choose to accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. There is no choice. Not in a religious sense, but we're all governed by God, the universe. There is no us outside of that. We are God. We are here as reflections. Like, you can't choose that. And so at the end of the day, it's like, I realized I can't keep working against myself about who I am. I think that I can choose all this time because that's what I was taught, but you can't choose. You either work in alignment with who you are or you just kind of struggle. And that's the same thing with like when I learned about being neurodivergent. Like I tried so hard to be neurotypical, but then I was like, I didn't choose this and I can't choose that either. So, I mean, either I accept this and make life beautiful with it, or I just struggle. And that sounds kind of bleak, but I just want to be very blunt with you. I had that realization just last night. I was like, well, I do this or I'm killing myself and I'm not killing myself. Yeah, that's really how it is sometimes. It really is. Ontology. I'll type it in the chat. Ontology. Hopefully I'm spelling that right. I'm a horrible speller. It basically just deals with the nature of being. Okay, so back to Angel's question about metaphysical dynamic mirrors. Why is this being blocked? Others are mirrors of your own internality, and situations are mirrors of what you externalize. When self aspects are disowned, the ability to even see your vision and hold on to your body and the material can be affected. Yeah, you worded that so perfectly. As I've seen, due to self-rejection, identity level rejection and choosing against yourself, which is a form of self-recognition. So when people don't recognize themselves, I was thinking that homelessness containers relate because it is an external situation symbolizing being caused by internal factors like the rejection and non-recognition. I've seen this play out with my family in the past 3 years and myself on a separate track. Yeah, you put that so perfectly. That's what you just described is creation energetics, or what a lot of people say manifestation, but creation energetics precedes manifestation. You can't manifest what lacks physical containment, as we already discussed. But yeah, you've worded that really perfectly. So I have so much to say. There'll be more of these events. I just have so much to say, but yeah, Angel's comment put it super succinctly, but yes. Yeah. That's a whole other conversation though. Okay, so back to the threshold resistance. This is the last one, by the way. And if you have anything else to add, please do. Oh yeah, the pizza party event in New York City. That's later. Not too far, but soon. Anyways, lack of self-trust, which is basically the crux of everything that we are going to do, or what you're going to do. Because if you don't trust yourself, you're not going to do it. Like if I told you to jump out your window right now, would you do it? Would you trust that you would fly? No. So it's not about like jumping into the unknown. It's about trusting yourself to maintain your presence through it all. Like, can you trust yourself to not collapse? Can you trust yourself to not run? Can you trust yourself to even, once it's all materialized, to hold it all? And that comes from your embodiment. Can you trust yourself to make the risk, to make the decisions, to carry the outcomes, to navigate the consequences? And that's what your sovereignty and authority hinges on. And a lot of people haven't been tested in like high magnitude consequential realities. So you second guess yourself a lot, or you shrink under the weight of your vision. But again, we're not asking you to do all that. We're asking you today to just, do I trust myself to give my consent to this vision to stay long enough for it to exist? Okay. We're at the moment of consent, but there is another comment. So I'll leave the next like 2-3 minutes for you guys to leave your comments. And again, if you don't want to give your consent, please feel free to leave. Not like I'm kicking you out. You can stay, but it just, I guess at this point, you can leave if you don't want to move forward. But if you would like to stay, regardless of you say yes or no, or if you know that you need to stay so we can finish this transmission, then I welcome you to that as well. Anyways, so Alexis asked, can you explain more about how you can't manifest what doesn't have physical containment? Okay, so manifestation assumes that something exists for you to attract it to you. Manifestation assumes that there is an externalized structure for your call to bounce off of and respond back to you. For example, if I want to manifest, let's say, a BMW, they exist already. I have channels through which money can flow to me. So it's just a matter of alignment and timing. Sometimes that looks like saving. Sometimes that looks like being at the right place at the right time. But you exist, the money exists, and the car exists. The dealership exists. So you're engaging with reality that exists. But when you want to manifest something, like let's say, I gave this example on my threads a while ago, but let's say you were born in like 1842 and you have a ball and you're like, wow, I want to be a basketball player. Basketball didn't exist back then, so you wouldn't even be saying that. But maybe you're like, oh, I just want to manifest like a career where I can just play sports. There was no professional sports team back then, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure there was no professional sports team back then. So at that point, you are manifesting, you're aligning, you are taking the aligned action, but nothing can respond to you because it doesn't exist. What's really actually happening in that moment is either you take on the responsibility to create something that can manifest that desire for you, or you just don't ever get it. Or like, for example, in the 1980s, someone might have said like, I wish there was a phone that you can touch like this. Apple didn't exist then. You can't manifest a touchscreen phone before the technology even existed for it. At that point, it doesn't matter how good of a manifester you are. It won't work. It doesn't exist. And so when it comes to your vision, when you say that my vision is something that has never existed before, I'm the first to do it, I'm the trailblazer, I am the originator, meaning what you are envisioning will only exist through you. There is nothing to manifest but to create. And the physical containment of it all is the externalized structures, which can look like the business, the legalities of it all, but also just the collective acknowledgement of its name. That's the containment. That is realm authorship. That is where authorship comes into. So for me, for a long time, I tried to manifest a specific kind of partnership or client, but it's not like they didn't exist. They didn't know they existed because I never brought grounding to my vision, governance, but also I didn't have the correct externalized structures. So I thought my business as it was enough. So I would have these specific containers or content, but I didn't yet bring this to earth and to collective consciousness. You're here because there's structure, the structure of myself, my YouTube channel, my content. It is now in your own mind. You're making decisions off of what you've learned from me. That is structure. So now I can manifest and say, I want to at least have 5 people in my event today. And we have 10. Or at least 10 people signed up. There's one person missing, but regardless of the fact, it's like, because I started to begin the creation of a realm, I can engage with it. But if there's nothing to engage with, and if the thing doesn't even exist, there is no manifestation because there's no containment and there is no externalization of that vision. Does that make sense? And guys, go ahead.
For a second, just because I talk and it's easier for me to. Okay, so what you're saying is that, and I'm assuming everybody else might be feeling the same way, is that as governors, we often struggle with the idea of manifestation because we think, well, we want the thing, so we just dream and get the thing, but what we're trying to create doesn't exist yet. So now we have to go through the struggle of creating the thing. And I think that's where a lot of maybe the resistance comes from is, well, at least from my part, is very much like, well, why doesn't it exist yet? Because I don't have to create something new. But understanding that there's a frustration with what already exists, so we want to create something new anyway. But I think maybe, so like today I got this download about the 5 commitments of an unprecedented leader. And then it was like, okay, I've created these 5 commitments that leaders who fall into this realm, what they have to be and what they have to be committed to. What you're saying, what I've created, is that now an example of, okay, now I've materialized it, or I've brought it into like a physical sense, or I've made a name for it. So a client or a person that I want to come into it has something to latch onto. Is that, words are not, I'm English, I don't know how to.
For the most part, yeah. Like, so a realm is a segment of reality. It is a segment of reality that is governed by principles, by laws, by paradigms, by culture, by language, recognition, rules, and physics. And so what you just did was touch on language, physics, what's the other thing? Recognition, because it's out there for people to engage with, and a few others, right? And then principle. The main thing is principle. So that is the first manifestation of materialization. And I already saw that you changed your name too. So all of those things are like the boundaries that create an authored realm.
Okay.
So remember we said like the vision is all these things. And then we might think it was just like, oh, it's just a business. But then we realize it's deeper than that, right? When you put those things to name, when you download those principles, slowly but surely, they become one piece again. And that one piece, when you get to the point, you'll know. You'll begin to recognize. And then you can say, it is finished. And then from there, that is when people can also engage in the law of call and response. That is when people can manifest you. That is when people can begin to populate what you've created. But again, you have to discover the physics as well. The physics, the language, the laws, the culture, even archetypes, etc. Like that is what creation, authoring of a realm. That is legislation. So this goes really deep into creation energetics, but the point is, it's like, think of, okay, let's bring it down a peg. We all know about world building. When you have not just the brand, but also the community, you have the status that people can take on when they work with you, the personality, the identity, etc. And so people are entering a world. So let's say, what's a good brand? Fenty. That's one of my favorites, right? Rihanna's Fenty and everything that she's done. Or even Beyonce, her as a brand. We could interact with her brand. Beyonce built all those aspects. And now she's not a realm, but we can use that word. You know what I mean? So it's gone to the point where she has an economy. She has language. So yes, maybe like here is the beginning, but it's meant to expand. Right now, the realm is you. And the job as governor is to make the conditions through which other people can engage with it, which expands it. But you have to know when it's finished. It's not the entire materialization. It is the foundation that can expound through materialization and execution. You know what I mean? Okay. But yeah, so if anyone has any more questions or would like to share anything before we go into the last segment, where I'll be guiding you to give your consent and your first display of consequentiality, which I call the irreducible next step. You can unmute yourself, or you could put it in the chat, and then we will begin in like for the last part in a few minutes.
I think a feeling and a thought and a process that I'm having right now is even in experiencing the guilt, the shame, and the grief, which are the biggest ones that all kind of tie into the nervous system capacity. I think in you expressing that the consent is really in staying present while we're being rearranged. You know, it doesn't negate the experience of any of those things. It's like recognizing that those things can and will pop up and being willing to, like, to your point, stay present with that process. And I think even that awareness helps to remove those elements of it, right? So like you can feel guilty about feeling guilty, or like shameful about your shame and all of those things, but it's like, no, it's all a part of the process for what I needed to be able to be able to express this vision. Because to your point too, like if we're not able to, if it's peaches, pears, apples, oranges, I only understand it's orange because I bit into it. If I didn't bite into it, I would have never known. So being able to like experience that, all of these, and to not double down on the feeling, but I recognize that that is also a part of staying present to the process of the rearrangement.
Yeah, exactly. I think when you're aware, it's just so much harder to really be mad about yourself. Like for me, I was so angry at myself for so long. I just couldn't figure out like why things were just so hard. And then when I finally realized, it was just like, okay, well, it's hard. I know how to deal with hard. Or if I don't know how to deal with hard, then it's just, you just deal with it. So yeah, that was a good way to put it. Thank you. I love the imagery of biting into it. Yeah, that was good imagery. I may or may not steal it, so. But yeah, anyone else have anything that you would like to ask or to share, or to whether it's reflections, a question, before we move on to the next portion? Okay. So we are in the last, oops, 1 second, y'all. I'm touching stuff. Okay. We are in the last section. And this doesn't require response. Like, I mean, another question. Was there going to be a discussion of Christianity as a death initiation in this call? No, but what did you want to know? What did you want to talk about with it? Like, I know I made a post about it. Did you want me to expound on it? Yeah, well, I'll wait for you to respond, Angel, but in the meantime, I was saying, that's okay though, we'll get back to that when you respond. But the moment of consent, was that what I was saying? Yeah, the moment of consent. Okay, I see. I was being impatient. I saw another post of yours about that being in this call or around a post promoting this event. I thought that might have been discussed. No, you're not interrupting. We're at the end, and we still have like 20 minutes left before the allotted time, so you're good. So if you have something to say, interrupt me. I don't mind. We're past the main point at this point, so interruptions are welcome. Yeah. That wasn't like a specific topic that I was going to talk about. It was just more so like my regular post and just having that underneath it. But since you asked, I would not mind. As I respond, you can, if there's anything specific, we can touch on it for like a few minutes. Unless you guys don't want to hear my 2-minute rant about it. If you don't, then I don't know, ignore me for a second. But I do think it's slightly it's not unrelevant. It's just a whole other thing, you know? Yeah, if it's coming up, sure. I agree. So Christianity. As you know, I was raised a very good Christian. I crossed all my T's and dotted all my I's. Not really, but I am also mostly Nigerian. So I was raised predominantly in Nigerian cosmologies in terms of Christianity. And then, of course, my dad was a pastor. So I experienced a lot of other denominations and flavors of Christianity. And then I went to a Christian school. Oh, that was a whole other thing. So I've just been in Christian spaces all my life. And so like this revelation, or what I'm saying, comes from both lived experience, but also something that's been revealed to me as well. So Christianity being a death ritual. Anything spiritual requires death. Revelation is death. Knowledge is death. Anything that requires for you to consent to something is to die. And it's not like in a gory sense. It does make you look like you have angel wings. Anyways, anything that requires for you to change is a kind of death. It's just, there's a whole spectrum of death. Christianity specifically, you know, it's a death religion. We talk about the death of Christ, dying to ourselves, carrying our cross. All throughout the Bible, it's just a thread, a through line of death. And what Christianity requires of you and what it's asking of you is to go through what Jesus went through in a more allegorical sense. We're not asking to like die, but it is asking for you to allow God to rearrange you. That's death. Salvation saves you from the afterlife, which is death. It deals with all of that. Like it's a consent to die so that you can live. It's a ritual because it requires sacrifice. Depending on who you ask, it may be your ego, it might be your family. We all know the Bible says that Jesus did not come for anything but, man, how do you put the verse? The verse that says, separating the parents from the child, the whatever. I'll have to look for it later. But in that post I made specifically about communion and how that was part of the death ritual, when you look at adjacent and also overlapping, what's the word? Okay, we'll get to that later. Overlapping religions and cultures. What Jesus was doing was asking you to take on him, to take on his portion in other cultures. And again, I wish next we'll have another thing, or I might make content about it so I can have all my notes more succinctly on it, so I can have all the specifics. But what he was asking of you in that moment is to take on his portion, to take on his identity, to take on his DNA. And who Jesus became, the Savior, the one who died, is what we are taking on. So eating of the flesh and blood is eating the portion of death. We know that leads to life, but to go through that process is death. What my critique of it was essentially not narrating that. We, at least how I grew up in the spaces I've been in, is saying that Christianity is comfort. It's promising comfort, relief. It's promising you an eternal savior, a friend, a father. When those things may be true depending on who it is asking. But what salvation does, what eating the flesh and blood does, is an initiation into death. It's asking you to die to yourself, as Christians say. It's taking who you are and putting it on an altar to be reconfigured. But again, if you aren't if you aren't prepared for that process, it will fracture you. It's just like this vision that you have. Like I've been saying, if you aren't prepared to die, if you aren't prepared to be in the presence of the most coherent thing, which is source, it will injure you. That's why the Bible says no man can see God and live. What we're doing here is bringing coherence to you. That's why so many people did not join, because that's a responsibility. When you interact with the presence of God, it changes you. And if you don't have the infrastructural relational support, if you don't understand what you're going through, it will injure you. It's an initiation. And word initiation sounds sometimes more than it is. It's consent. It's guided consent, essentially, depending on what it is. But, yeah. Christianity requires you to die. Knowing God requires you to die. That's exactly why everything was structured around that. It's just that in our culture, in so many cultures, we don't have proper death rituals. And that's why I think Christianity is kind of reductive to our evolution. But again, that goes further. I have so much else to say, but that's the best way I can put it in the most succinct answer without going on a whole tangent. So we'll talk about that another day. It'll be on my YouTube channel maybe another day. There's just so much I have to touch on, like the culture, and then the language, the religions that influence that gesture that Jesus gave. There's just so much to it, but that's the easiest way I can put it. Anyways, Kyla B said, this is a separate comment. I feel like this transmission is helping me clarify what I'm actually consenting to, but I want to let you get through the next segment in case it adds more clarity for me. And then I have come to bring the sword that mother will... Yeah, that's the verse. Angel wrote the verse in that comment. Thank you. And 444, yeah. 444 for me reminds me of Jesus's death. That's the number that I associate with initiation. So that's very interesting. Okay. Again, just put anything in the comments and then we'll get to it after we get to this segment. The last segment is the moment of consent. What you are consenting to, as we've been going over and over with, is the irreversible self-reorganization. Essentially, what you are saying when you say, I consent to be rearranged by this vision and to stay through that process is, I consent to be changed and to change reality around me according to my authority and jurisdiction. It says, I consent to be known to myself, God, and the people my embodiment will govern. And lastly, I consent to the restructuring of my life to accommodate the birth of my vision. And I'm going to put this in the comments so you can have, because I do not have a slideshow because I was told not to, so can't apologize for that. 1 second. There we go. All these three sayings kind of conjoins everything I've been talking about, right? You consent to be changed and to change reality. You consent to be known. You consent to be restructured, both internally and in your life. When I say I'm giving my consent, this is what you're consenting to. This is what will change this into this. That's how you stay present. Because that's what's going to happen. That's exactly what's going to happen. And that's what's required of you. So when you are giving your consent, just be aware that this is what you're saying. Oh, this kind of goes back into why maybe I'll have maybe there'll be a day I'll just do a whole thing about my thoughts on Christianity. Because this is also what you consent to when you give salvation too. Just in a slightly different way. But if you think of all the things that we've talked about today, that is not disclosed to you when you go up to the altar on Sunday morning. That's why a lot of people end up in psychosis, but that's neither here nor there. That's for later. So, but yeah. You will know when you've given your consent when you First, when you become aware, which you are now, you know that you've given your consent when you go for what is normal for you and it's no longer an option. You will know when you've given your consent when you say wholeheartedly that there can be nothing but. Because at that point, materialization is a non-negotiable. And from this point onwards, I'm not going to ask you to like say it out to me. But what I am going to ask is to just be honest with yourself in this moment. Recognize what we were talking about. And even take my own story. Also, I guess this is a through line. Like with Christianity, if you're like me and you did not know what you're consenting to when you gave God your yes, think about what you've gone through. Think about what it has costed you. Think about what it has done in you, the good and the bad. You know what you went through. Maybe you can say like, if I had known differently, whatever. Or think about when you went to grad school. Think about when you got into this marriage. Whatever it is, anything that required your consent, think of it. Think about what you knew and what you now know because you've gone through it, what you would have done differently. Feel the weight of it. This is that moment. There will be a time years later where you recognize, I am living the consequences of this thing. And it was weighty. But at least now, you know better. And so, again, I'm not going to ask you to say like, oh, I could give my consent. I don't need this to be performative. I also don't need you to prove this to me. And it's not like I don't care. It's just your life will show its fruit. Your life will accommodate. And from this point onwards, you will be experiencing a lot of synchronicities, a lot of opportunities, a lot of downloads if you consent. If you don't consent, that's not my business. That's between you and the Lord. That's not for me. But it is for you. Like I said in the beginning, my goal is to get you to the point where you are aware of what you're doing. Now it's no longer I didn't know. Now it's I know and I am active and I'm actively choosing against or for it. I also want to guide you through taking your first step of consequentiality, which I call the irreducible next step. Because again, I know right now, swimming through your mind, maybe you think of something within you that you know you're going to have to work on. Or maybe you know you're going to have to make some changes or whatever. It doesn't matter. You don't have to tell me. If you want to tell me, maybe. I don't know. I'll think about it. I don't know. I mean, again, I don't want to create an environment where you have to perform. It's not for me to approve of, So it's just, I want this to be something that is grounded in you. So maybe don't share it. Maybe just keep it for you. I'll get to your comment in a second, Alexis. Consequentiality. No, I lied. That's not the word I was looking for. What is the word I was looking for? Inevitability. Yes, that's the word I'm looking for. After you consent, this becomes inevitable. Before, it was optional. This consent locks you in on a very specific timeline. So your irreducible next step. For some of you, that looks like working with me. For most of you, probably not right now. And that's not to say to like discourage you from reaching out to me, but I also don't want to use me as a way to bypass what is actually irreducible for you. So if that's working with me, I'm available. But for a lot of you, it looks like going to therapy. For a lot of you, it looks like raising your credit. For a lot of you, it looks like learning to receive pleasure. For a lot of you, it looks like showing up more consistently. Whatever it is, what's next for you, especially after this call, is buckling down on what you know. Like, I know you know. It'll feel like a aligned decision. You will know what to do next. And we're all in various points of our journey, right? So you will know. It will be appropriate for you. And the only thing I ask of you, I guess for your homework, is to engage with that irreducible next step. Governance unfolds through initiation, which is consent. If you've given your consent just now, take an action that aligns with that. That is what the next step is. And then I also implore you to name the consequences I'm guiding you through this threshold today, but there will be several other thresholds that you're going to cross. Sometimes smaller, sometimes just as big as this one. But sometimes a consequence of your vision of saying yes means that you can never go back to that job. Sometimes a consequence is firing all your clients. I've done that so many times. For me specifically, I had to commit to never working a job again. I had to break up with my longtime partner. I had to deconstruct from Christianity, and I had to leave everything I had learned about sales and business and brand strategy for the past decade plus behind in favor of what I've been called to give. Not give, to build. So whatever it is, count the cost and know the cost so you can move forward in full consciousness. Okay. That's essentially it, but I do have a little bit of an outro, but I'll get to Alexa's question first. I would love to know what realms and worlds everyone else in here is building or governing. Oh yeah, please do. You can unmute yourself, or you can just put in the comments, but if you guys would like to share, I would also love to know.
My realm of governance is social wellness, and it's being expressed through a social wellness club that I host and I'm the steward of called Harvest. It's expressed through DJing. It's expressed through making music. It's expressed through writing and resident writing. It's expressed through film and production, and it's expressed through wellness design. But it's really just reimagining and grounding the world into how we really need each other, and how play and rest and fun are really going to be what changes the world. And just allowing us to remember that, like, it's easy to trust in that, and that it can be fun to be well and be fun to care and fun to, like, support each other, and we can, like, do it in a way that will change how we move.
So it's almost like you're governing the collective nervous system.
Yeah, writing that down.
Please do. Anyone else would like to share?
I mean, I asked, so I don't mind sharing. I'm governing leadership, so I'm creating governance through which all leadership flows. I decide what leadership is, at a micro level, at a macro level. It's the only thing that I'm good at. So I don't know. There's a certain level of arrogance that has to come with that. I had a friend mirrored to me that I will probably far outpace John Maxwell's work. Of every person who has created leadership behind me won't go as far as I will. And that feels like a big mountain to climb, because everybody talks about leadership. And so I don't develop leaders. I don't work with people who are like, I want to lead. I work with people who are creating something that's never been created before. A good example is Zoran Mondani. He fits very well into unprecedented leadership. And so the governance that I have is over all leadership. I decide what it is, which is honestly pretty cool.
Yeah. You're a physicist.
Oh, okay, yes, I like that.
Because at that point, leadership already is a thing. It's just not named. So I guess what I feel is just finding or engaging with unnamed reality, grounding it and packaging it for those who will trickle down that leadership to others. That's why I say a physicist. It's like gravity. Gravity at one point didn't have a name, but it always existed. Your principles have always existed. It's just no one has grounded it and made it the standard. So that's how I see it.
Thank you.
Before I go to Angel's question, does anyone else have would like to share what they feel like they're governing?
I'll share. I was like trying to type it, then it's like I couldn't get the. I don't know. I was shy.
It's okay.
Hi everyone. I don't have all the words exactly, and I am still figuring out all the ways that I'm like all the multi ventures, but I am helping like as many people as possible identify what their personal golden age realities are, and then helping them to bring it and ground those visions into their lives, like through materialization and creation energetics. And for a lot of people that I find are drawn to my work, actually everyone so far that has been drawn to my work is also like their personal golden age reality involves helping or being of service or being a leader in the collective. So like what you were speaking about, Alexis, like part of that feels relevant to me too. It's like at a certain point, like your personal, you like achieve everything you wanted to for yourself, and you realize there's like it doesn't matter if there's people like starving or suffering, and so it's like it's yeah. That's all the words so far. But right now, the way that it's coming through, or what I'm focusing on, is figuring out infrastructure in my life so that I can consistently take the wisdom that I receive and put it out into the world. Because for so long, I've been holding it in and like just feeling like energetically constipated because I didn't have like a consistent way of like doing it. Would be like very haphazard. So the way I'm doing that right now is through my YouTube channel and like being consistent weekly with stuff, and kind of so it's like YouTube, and then the social media is helping me just be consistently taking what's inside me and putting it out somewhere, externalizing it. But I also have all these other visions of like a jewelry brand and like other product based things, and like I just did a meeting with a local woman who we're creating like a women's circle network, but it's gonna be so much more than like your classic women's circle. Like it's like gonna be like we're recreating the village that so many women speak about wanting, especially once they like enter into motherhood. Like we're creating that in our local community, but it is just kind of like a new way of approaching that problem because it's so much to do with like resonance and stuff. Anyway, there's so many things happening. And I'm just trying to focus on showing up every day and not like consenting to what's happening, and showing up every day and not being like in, half out, etc. Because it's a lot.
Yeah, sounds like priestess work.
True.
Anyways, thank you. Thank you all for sharing. Let me get into Angel's question. Is there a method for triangulating priorities or finding out what they all share at the core if you are a multi-potentialite type of person? I found interest in a lot of sorry. I just realized something. I'll share at the end. If you are a multi-potentialite type of person, I found interest in a lot of different places, different topics, different careers, art program, sales, dancing. Making a coherent story out of all of them can be difficult. Going back to your example of the post-it before it is whole, coherent, how it sounded when you listed all the different things it might be when you don't know yet. Yeah, that's the challenge. Okay, so I actually made a newsletter about this, and if you would like it, I can offer that maybe. Let me see if I can find it 1 second. Because that's really the crux of where you are right now, right? Man, what did I call it? I'll look for it. Essentially, that it's a whole strategy, but Man, I wish I could find it now so I can, 1 second. If I can find it, then I could talk about it. Yeah, I feel like I should share it. But while we're here, let me find it. But yeah, essentially, there was a term I called it. I just can't remember. That's why I kind of want to find it. Let me see. 1 second. Yeah, I sent this out in November. How to build a cohesive universe. One second. Okay. There are a few things I want to send you for that answer. So I'll send you that email. I also have a video that talks about this. It'll do a lot better justice than me trying to cram it in towards the end. It's titled The Founder's Process of Materialization. And there's another one that is called From Formless to Form. I'll send it all in the email at the end. If you would like to understand how to bring cohesion to your vision and like have a unified through line to where you can condense it and communicate it in like a word or a phrase or something, these will definitely help. I definitely think that's what I was supposed to kind of leave you all with. But if you don't have anything else to ask or to share or to reflect on with me, that is it. I don't need to know if you have given your consent or not. But for those of you who have, I am very excited for you. Sometimes, please share, Kyla. Go ahead.
Okay, I didn't want to be rude. I'm like, where do I raise my hand? I cannot remember. This was in response to Alexis's, y'all feel me?
Mm-hmm.
Her question, because I didn't really have language for it, but I do feel like I'm trying to bridge the spiritual and the practical.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I've been wrestling with lately is like advanced spiritual teachings. I just keep wanting to find them, and then I go on YouTube and they're like, this is how to connect to like the 50th dimension. I don't need to know that shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, what's going on? Why are you doing this? Like, I want to know how to, not only for myself, I feel like I know how for myself, but how to help other people live the life that they want to live. Mm-hmm. So like through my business, I offer all these different tools and services and things, but it's like, it's supposed to help you improve the quality of your life. And I feel like truly being able to live that allows you to ascend more than meditation and trying to tap into all this other stuff is. So when it comes to those advanced spiritual teachings that I'm thinking about, I'm kind of like, who am I to come and tell people, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, who am I to do that? But at the same time, it's like, I think I understand how to make that tangible for people. So a lot of times in terms of my clients now, like a lot of times they're already spiritual. They're not beginners. Even if they're starting to open up to things, they're not beginners. Mm-hmm. So in working with them, it's like they're already open to it, but they're literally trying to like, well, how do I help the relationships in my life? How do I bring money, blah, blah, blah. And that's what I help them with. And through that, they're learning their lessons and they're healing and they're actually, ascending, so to speak.
Yeah. I'm just thinking. I have a thought. I just don't know how to phrase it.
Take your time. I got time.
I'm glad. Okay, so what came to my mind was maybe I want to stress this a little bit. Well, cool. This is not like a direct response to you, but it's inspired by what you just said, which thank you for sharing. But there are, and this is why we'll have another one of these, just with I guess, maybe a part 2. I don't know. We'll see what God leads me to do. But there are layers to the architecture of reality.
Yes.
We know we have space, the ozone layer, the sky, earth, whatever. But also, there's a hierarchy, right? I think, one thing I want to leave you with is a lot of us are primed to think at this layer, which is community, brand, the individual, when if you're going to govern, you can't govern a few individuals and it have what's the word? Ramifications? You know what I'm trying to say. For the whole... ramifications for the whole collective where we're all governed by. Like, these are laws. This is where you operate. That is your altitude. So I love what you shared because it just... Like, all of you, what you're sharing is so beautiful. But I just want to remind you, as you're being rearranged, like, just know that you operate up here. Like, you wouldn't talk to John down the street. You would talk to the president or the leaders of the world. That is where you are. So I very much think that you may have to raise the caliber of people that you speak to and also how you and relate to, because like what you shared, especially, I think that just triggered that thought because I just think it's so needed, like I don't want to say not many people think that, but we need it. That's a direct response to the collapse we're experiencing right now. So.
Yeah, no, I understand that. And I watched your governor series. I don't know if I feel like you said you were going to add more videos. I don't know if you've done that since.
Just one, but I'm still building.
The original video through the Sovereign video. And I remember listening to the High Priestess and I was like, yeah, that's me. Okay, there it is. And then you brought Sovereign and I was like, damn. Like, okay. And when you were saying, so I was saying earlier, like, I feel like I'm understanding more about what I'm consenting to because I realized the issue was that I did not want to be known. Like, I just want to share, take the tools, do your thing. And that's not it. So, like, what I was saying with the advanced spiritual teachings is, like, I don't want to teach. I don't want to be the one to say it. Not because I technically mind, but it's that having to be known. So you talking a lot about like just being able to show up. I was thinking about that earlier. So it's all in alignment. It's all doing good things. I'm not gonna take up too much of y'all time, but y'all can connect with me later, and hopefully I can connect with you later as well.
Yeah, you're making me think a lot. I just don't know why. So we will connect. Okay. I'm sorry. I don't have a good response to what you said, but I heard you. I just don't know how to respond right now. That sounds like one of your consequences. Yeah, it does. Being seen is everyone's consequences. It really is. Even if the only aspiration you had in life was to find a man, it would require for you to be seen to some capacity. That's everyone's lot in life. It's just for governors, it's to a higher degree. But yeah, thank you for sharing. I don't mean to kind of like space out on you, but I'll find the articulation soon.
Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I think what I was naming as one of her consequences too was you're saying like you don't want to teach, you just want to like so, but where you're like, well, I don't want to teach, but like I know how to teach and I could teach, so like I could get there, and then so it almost sounds like one of your consequences being like I gotta give up, or like teaching in that perspective, or like what you're naming as teaching that you're saying you don't feel called to do, being like, okay, like I don't feel called to do that because that is a consequence. That's something that I have to give up to be able to do what I'm actually supposed to be doing.
Yeah, that's so true. I feel like, again, the known part of it, like that consequence, I did not like. And it was perfect how you explained Christianity because I have a very, very similar background to you, Naomi. But like, just not knowing exactly what you're consenting to in kind of like a lot of the language I'm using now, but like wrecked by God, like that whole thing, you don't know what you're consenting to. And I feel like when I consented to doing all of this, I was like, okay, I'll share. And then it was like, okay, we'll share everything. And then like share from the level you're at. Stop trying to like meet people and let people meet you. That's consequences, because that means leaving people behind and all of things. So anyway, that's a whole thing. We will connect. Be quiet.
Yeah, it really is. Tay, did you have a response or? Okay, good. Okay. Alexis said, I didn't mind being known. I didn't want to be perceived as arrogant. Yeah, that was me for a very long time. I think this also relates to the video I made called, let me just go find it. I can't remember my videos, the titles. The trauma of being unmirrored, how their refusal to mirror you was evil. Is that what I wrote? Yeah, it was evil. It was sabotage. Yeah, I relate to that a lot. I think one of the first mirrorings I got as a kid was that I was arrogant. And then it just kind of followed me for a long time. I was called arrogant by teachers, by my parents. And I feel like no one ever said anything positive to me. Like they never mirrored like my strength or like my confidence, my resoluteness. It was always like, she's so arrogant. Who does she think she is? Especially when you're Christian and then the Bible tells you that you will be spit out if you're prideful. It just had me shaking. So I was like, okay, I need to tone it down. But now I know better. And I think for me, not fearing being arrogant anymore helped me. But also, you have to be arrogant because the leaders that you're meant to work with won't recognize you. Like, I don't think I started to really interact with the people who I've been meant to interact with until I just said F this and then showed up. Because when you're a governor, I mean, it's very audacious to say, I am the one who defines. I am the one who governs. You know what I mean? It's just, it's only audacious now because you're not materially recognized yet. But it won't be that way for long. So I relate to that. But yeah, if you have anything else while I say my closing thoughts and prayers, not prayers, I was just being dramatic, but yeah, the end. We have reached the end. So I am very, very happy for all of you for joining me. This is my first event since 2021, and I know this will not be the last. I am planning a few in-person events in New York, and I believe I have, it's still a threshold, but it's a bit more training style. I believe I'll be hosting in March, but you all will hear about it. You're on my mailing list now, so we're locked in for as long as you decide to not opt out. Again, I just ask of you, take that irreducible next step as soon as you can. I also will be sending you access to this replay for the next 48 hours as soon as that email is sent. I will also be sending you over a response form with a couple of questions, just not necessarily for feedback, but for your own orientation to kind of like put down in words how you received, and also it can help me know how much that I have been able to impact you, because of course I want to make sure that I am in full alignment with your orientation towards this vision. Also, you are invited to materially respond, not to another offer, but more as an offering. It's not required, but if you have been impacted by me and you have received from me in here, the opportunity to respond in impact will be available to you through an offering. Again, not required, but if you would like to, that will be listed in the follow-up email as well. Again, there will be more, and I would like to see you all again. Thank you for joining me today. And, you know, as much as I may have given you this transmission for the thresholds, this is also such a threshold for me. I think this marks for me like the beginning of my public visibility as a governor. So thank you for walking through that with me as well. And I hope that you don't just let this sit in you, but you let this move past you. Because remember, I talked about the stagnant waters. Let this flow. Don't let this be something that you have to keep using, like being near me to be activated in. Like, you are an authority in yourself, and there's no one more trustworthy or more capable of carrying out. Yeah, don't be energetically constipated. But yeah, there's no one more capable and more worthy of what you're building than you. It was made for you. It is you. So I'm in full agreement and alignment with everything that you're doing. I see so many of you on my timeline already doing it. So I'm excited for the materialization of this vision. And yeah, thank you, Angel and Kyla, for your words. I really appreciate it. Yeah, guys, please follow each other everywhere. You don't have to. I mean, if you want to. I think it'll be a good thing to just kind of keep in not close contact, but just be aware of others like you, because it can be a lonely journey, but I'm happy that you made it here. I really, really am. So thank you again. And if you have anything else you'd like to say before I close the call, just let me know. But yeah, that's all I have for today. Oh, are we just asking Danielle and Angel for their social media? If you like to put that in the chat. Okay. I don't know if Angel's still there. Oh, you are. There you are. Okay, so they put their ads in the chat. But yeah. That's all. Thank you, guys. I'll see you guys in the next one, hopefully. I'll let you know when that will be up. So have a good night, guys.
Recording stop.